In Queensland, I think we need to establish some partnershiping arrangements for the future for e-planning, and that's between local government, those partners that I outlined earlier. We need to start working with each other across the board, and that goes without saying, and we've got to develop some common online services. It's no good us all going and reinventing the wheel. We've got to stop doing that. In your council, ask yourself, what services could you take online? Have you already taken some online? Could you go further? And make sure you undertake that readiness assessment to see if you're ready to put some more stuff online. As an individual, I'd ask you to embrace, lead and live the opportunities that this technology provides us. We've come so far in the last 15 years. Imagine what it's going to be like in the next 15. And finally, it is okay to say, wouldn't it be good if? I sit there at times thinking, wouldn't it be good if? And then go and make it happen.
We've been working with councils to look at, and industry to look at not sweating the small stuff. And I should have said at the start, this not only applies to councils, it applies to state agencies as well. So, trying not to sweat the small stuff. There's a lot of people in this room, and I'll say slightly more mature planners, maybe the ones that before 1995, who tell me that in their day on the DA desk, it's one of those when I was a boy, that they could open a file and in 10 minutes know whether they're going to approve it or not. And with our project, we've seen that that's actually possible. So if that is possible, and we know it is, why don't we focus on the things that they look at in those 10 minutes, the really critical things that they're going to refuse the application on, and build it up from there, and only add things that add value, because every item we put in there, every question, every report adds cost. It adds complexity. And I haven't yet seen who that complexity or cost benefits. It's certainly not the developer, it's certainly not the owner, and I haven't seen any impacts on the neighbourhood that covers that small stuff. So look at the things, especially given we approve 98% of these applications. Look at the things we want to refuse, build it up from there. So my take-home message is don't sweat the small stuff. The DA people in the region have taken their stand. They've made a change in SEQ in terms of their DA process. And now it's time for strategic planners to do good schemes that match that.
A mix of strategies is required for cultural reform. There must be an appetite for risk to make it happen. Political and corporate leadership must align, and new planning schemes must reflect DA improvements, and they must create new DA efficiencies. So the key message, always strive for the best possible processes, the best possible systems, the right people, and most importantly, you need the right leadership.
Lastly, I'll just recap what I said. Let's start trying to force strategic planning to look 20 to 50 years ahead, because as I said, most of our stuff sits outside of mainstream planning. If you look at Forest Lake, you look at Springfield, you look at North Lakes, you look at Yarrabilba, the latest one, they are all outside mainstream planning, and it's a shame. They shouldn't be outside mainstream planning. We can bring them in. So let's plan out to Beaudesert, let's plan out to Rosewood, let's plan whatever we need to plan. And don't also think that I'm saying this is SEQ-centric, because this applies Townsville, Mackay, and any number of other places that a developer might be quite active. One zone is enough. I wrote in here no more than 5 zones because I thought one zone would scare the shit out of you, but actually, in honesty, look, 2 to 3 is probably ideal. Some residential, some open space, a core precinct, and that's really all you need. You cannot go wrong, and I can show you the 50-odd projects that we've had around the country, and they have not gone wrong. You can't point at things that have gone wrong. Research, not just consultation, just a little tip from me, is that research is a little bit different to community consultation. You're asking the questions in a different way. Self-assessment of 90%, I cannot stress that enough, and I think these guys have sort of proven some of those points. And implement now, in the planning schemes you guys are writing now, some of those sacred cows of lots under 450 are a no-no. Start to change those paradigms and implement them now. So thank you very much.
At the end of the day, the purpose of planning scheme is to manage growth and the expectations and aspirations of the community. Planners, and including plan drafters, and I think it was Di said it, are typically risk averse. We need to get away from that. We need to embrace the risk management principles. We need to look at what are the risks of the whole community. If we don't have that private outdoor space in the backyard, or we don't have articulation down the side fence, does it adversely impact the community? Can we get away from that and move into an area where we don't have those applications coming through, what's the benefits to the community of a faster processing? Dual occupancies, for example, going straight through to building application. Too much we're regulating the 100% just in case some wacky developer comes up and wants to put a really bad designed development on a block of land. As Greg's just said, developers are generally wanting, well, not generally, developers at the end of the day, our constituents in local government are their clients. If they create a bad development with no outdoor space, they're not going to be able to sell it. They're in there to make a gain, and normally a financial gain. They want to sell it. If they have a bad design stuff, they're not going to do it. So you generally don't get it. So we need to look at introducing the risk management principles into the plan making process. At the end of the day, we're all working towards the same end. Plan drafters want a scheme that efficiently manages development. DA planners want to be working on applications where they add value. A large shed in the backyard, not interested. It's a boring assessment. Dual occupancies, an industrial shed in an industrial estate that's the same as the one next door and the one next door and the one next door and the one next door after that, doesn't excite the DA planners. They want to be doing somewhere where they can actually make a difference to the process. So at the end of the day, there's a few key questions that planners, both DA and plan drafters, need to jointly analyse. Is there value added through the assessment of the development, or are we just going through the motions? This is the way we did it last year. This was our last scheme that was code accessible. The one before it was code accessible. The one before that it was code accessible. So we'll have it code accessible in the next scheme. Break that. Look at, is it critical? Do we need to see it? Does the development need to trigger accessible development, or can it be self-assessable? Get through that, lower the levels of assessment, and also have a look at how are the provisions to be implemented. How does the applicant demonstrate compliance? How does the assessment manager assess compliance? Too often we have elements in our schemes that you look at them and go, sounds good, but how the hell do you go and put a tick next to it and say, yes, it complies? It's particularly on some of the smaller type of applications, it's just not necessary.